Welcome, dear listeners, to another enchanting voyage. Tonight, our journey whisks us away to the hauntingly beautiful moors of England. Here, the cool winds whisper tales of resilience, love, and undying spirit. Amidst this landscape, we encounter a woman whose story has resonated with readers for generations. Her name is Jane Eyre. Before we tuck you in tonight, voyagers of the night sky, we have a small but crucial request. As your eyelids grow heavy and the soothing tones of sleepy voyagers guide you to the realm of dreams, remember the peace, serenity, and comfort that we bring to you every night, just as a lighthouse guides lost ships. In the darkness, your reviews help other restless dreamers find their way to us. By leaving a review and sharing your thoughts on your experience, you are reaching out to other insomniacs lost in the night, guiding them towards restful sleep. Take a moment before you drift away to click on the Leave a Review button on your podcast app. Help us extend our galaxy of tranquility to all those who seek the solace of sound sleep. And once you've done that, feel free to slip back under the covers of our sleep stories, ready to be whisked away on another sleepy voyage. Remember, your stars light the way for others. Every review, every rating helps us create a bigger, more beautiful universe of peace and rest. Gateshead Hall, a stately residence amidst the green English countryside, may seem to many like a haven, but for young Jane Eyre it was a prison of emotions. Born an orphan, Jane found herself under the care of her aunt, yet care is perhaps a generous word to use in this context. Mrs. Reed's demeanour towards Jane was cold, distant, and often disdainful. It was not the warm embrace of family, but rather the begrudging obligation of a relative. In this expansive home, laughter echoed. But it was not for Jane. Her cousins, John, Elijah, and Georgiana, roamed the halls, playful and spirited. However, their games often turned malevolent, especially when Jane was the subject. John, in particular, took every opportunity to remind Jane of her inferior position. He declared her a dependent, told her she had no value. One might wonder, how could such a young soul endure such consistent torment? But endure she did, showcasing a spirit unbowed and resilience untamed. Jane's sharp intellect and vivid imagination were her refuge. She found solace in books, losing herself in tales of distant lands and brave heroes. In them, she discovered worlds where justice prevailed and kindness was a universal language. Yet, even in her moments of escapism, reality would intrude. Her solitude was often broken by taunts or sudden outbursts of cruelty, though small in stature. Jane's spirit was large, often leading her to defend herself and voice her thoughts. But in a household where her voice was stifled, these moments of defiance came at a cost. Still, amid the challenges, Jane Eyre remained a symbol of hope, for in her heart she knew she deserved love and respect. The mansion of Gateshead was vast and intimidating, yet within its walls it harbored the stark coldness of indifference. Young Jane, barely 10, navigated long corridors, her small feet padding softly on the opulent carpets. However, one room in particular held an aura distinctly darker than the others. It was a place not just of physical confinement, draped in deep reds and mahoganies. The room had once belonged to Jane's deceased uncle. Its luxurious fabrics and grand furniture stood in contrast to the chilling isolation it represented. Every object within it seemed to whisper tales of times long past, echoing with the silent memories of its previous occupant. On that fateful day, after a petty dispute with her bullying cousin John, Jane found herself accused and misunderstood. Her pleas of innocence went unheard as she was dragged to the Red Room, her small protests lost in the vastness of the mansion. The heavy door closed behind her, sealing her away. Inside, the dim light filtered through the curtains, casting an eerie glow on the room's opulent furnishing. The large mirror reflected back a scared young girl, her fiery spirit momentarily dampened by the injustice she felt. But within the cold confines of the Red Room, Jane's internal fire began to ignite. In the room's silence, Jane's thoughts amplified. She pondered the cruel hands of fate that had placed her in such circumstances, and dreamt of a life beyond these oppressive walls. While the Red Room sought to confine her, it inadvertently became a catalyst. Jane's resolve to find love, respect. For every spirit, every soul has a breaking point, a moment that defines their path forward. And for Jane, the Red Room wasn't just a prison. It was the beginning of a journey, one that would challenge her, shape her, and ultimately lead her to find her true self. Inside the walls of Gateshead, Jane's spirit felt trapped. The days felt monotonous, each moment shadowed by the disdain of her relatives. Every glance from her aunt was filled with unspoken criticism, and the teasing of her cousins was relentless. It wasn't just the physical torment, but the emotional isolation that weighed heavily on her young heart. Jane, with her keen intellect, yearned for something more. She dreamt of wide open spaces, of freedom. Books became her escape, the words within a portal to other worlds. But within the confines of Gateshead, learning was stifled, opportunities limited. One day, a conversation between her Aunt Reed and Mr. Lloyd, the family's physician, offered a glimmer of hope. The talk of sending her away to a school might have sounded like punishment to most children, but to Jane it was a beacon. To her, school meant an escape, a chance to learn, to grow, and to find a space where she might perhaps belong. She clung to that hope, imagining the classrooms, the lessons, and the possibility of making a friend. School, she believed, would be her sanctuary, a place to mold her mind and to find her voice. The idea of leaving Gateshead was like the promise of a dawn after a long, oppressive night, and so, with a mix of hope and apprehension, Jane awaited her journey to Lowood School, dreaming of the independence and knowledge it promised. Lowood School, an institution enveloped in a muted atmosphere, stood tall amidst the vast English countryside. Its imposing grey stone walls bore witness to the discipline and order that governed its halls. The long corridors echoed with the footsteps of its inhabitants, mainly young girls who shuffled obediently from one task to another. Students rose with the first light, greeted by a bell that punctuated the cold mornings. They gathered in rows, reciting morning prayers in unison, their voices harmonizing in a hymn of devotion. This routine, though repetitive, was seen as the backbone of a proper education in those times. Meals were simple and austere, reflecting the institution's belief in the virtues of modesty and restraint. Lessons in Lowood revolved around scripture, sewing, and the classics, with a strict focus on moral development and adherence to duty. Teachers, while dedicated, often emphasized adherence to the rules, believing that a disciplined life was the key to success and virtue. Yet, amidst this strict regimen, the school was not devoid of warmth or kindness. There were moments when the sun pierced the clouds, casting a golden glow on the school grounds, hinting at the hope that lay within some of its residents. Such environments though they might seem oppressive, often became the crucible for shaping strong-willed and independent individuals. And it was in this setting that Jane Eyre, with her fiery spirit, found herself navigating her formative years, learning lessons that would define her journey ahead within the cold stone walls of Lowood School. Young Jane found herself amidst the strict discipline and a regimented routine. The air was often thick with a somberness, a reflection of the disciplined life the girls led. Yet, in this gloomy environment, a single beacon of kindness emerged. Her name was Helen Burns. Helen was not like the other girls. She had a grace about her, an innate wisdom that transcended her years. Their friendship blossomed in the most unexpected moments, often after the lights had dimmed and the halls echoed with silence. Jane and Helen would lay awake. Their conversations were whispered, like secrets shared between kindred spirits. Helen spoke of hope, love, and forgiveness, often offering Jane a perspective she had never considered. It was in these hushed moments, beneath the weight of blankets, that Jane found solace. Helen's words were often a balm to the wounds of Jane's past, helping her navigate her present. The bond they forged was built on trust, understanding, and a shared experience of the world around them. In Helen, Jane found more than just a friend. She discovered a mentor, a confidant, a guiding light in the darkest corners of Lowood. Together, they navigated the challenges of school life, finding pockets of happiness amidst the rigidity. Their whispered conversations became the silver lining in Jane's time at Lowood, a reminder that even in the most challenging situations, there are rays of hope and friendship. Helen Burns was more than just a friend to young Jane. She was a beacon of light in the gloomy halls of Lowood, a source of warmth amidst the biting cold. Their friendship blossomed quickly. Helen's wisdom and faith often seemed beyond her years. She viewed the world with a sense of acceptance, imparting to Jane lessons about grace, patience, and love. One evening, the two nestled under their thin blankets. Jane noticed Helen's quiet strength as she spoke of God and faith. Helen believed that life's sufferings were fleeting. Her words offered solace, her presence a comfort. Yet, destiny had a different plan. The rampant sickness at Lowood soon claimed Helen. The night before Helen's passing, they whispered in the darkness, cherishing every fleeting moment. Jane held Helen, feeling the warmth ebbing away. By morning, the world felt colder, the dormitory emptier. Yet, in this profound loss, Jane learned pivotal lessons. Life was fragile, every moment precious. and even in the face of profound grief, the human spirit could endure. Helen's teachings about faith, endurance, and the transient nature of life would remain etched in Jane's heart. Her friend might have departed, but her teachings lived on, guiding Jane through the many trials she would face in the years to come. Helen's legacy was more than just memories. It was the strength and resilience she instilled in Jane. The world outside Lowood was vast, but for Jane Eyre, it was also uncharted and intimidating. The walls of the school, while often cold and restrictive, had become familiar, yet within her a fire burned. Jane wasn't one to be confined by circumstance or tradition. The idea of becoming a governess was not born out of mere necessity, but also out of a deep-seated desire for self-sufficiency. She longed for an existence defined by her terms, where her decisions, however small, were wholly her own. Jane's qualifications were modest, but they were hard-earned. Teaching, she believed, would not only provide her with independence, but also grant her a new perspective, away from the memories and associations of Lowood. It was not a glamorous position. Governesses often occupied an ambiguous space, neither part of the family nor part of the servant class. They led lives, many times, of solitude, but Jane saw beyond the challenges. To her, the role represented a step forward, an assertion of her own identity outside the shadows of her painful past. Every application she penned, every inquiry she made, was a testament to her determination. The journey ahead was uncertain, yet Jane was not seeking grand adventures or startling experiences. She yearned for the ordinary moments of autonomy, where her worth wasn't measured by her past or societal expectations, but by her resolve and character to venture out. As a governess was to take control of her narrative, one page at a time. And in this new chapter, Jane hoped not to find not just employment, but a deeper understanding of herself and the world around her. Thornfield Hall stood tall, an edifice of stone and history, shrouded in mystery, with its towering spires and vast windows. Jane Eyre, having made the decision to leave the confines of Lowood, embarked on a new chapter in her life, accepting a position as a governess. With each step towards Thornfield, the air grew richer with anticipation. The grandeur of the mansion was undeniable. Its walls, which had seen countless seasons pass, held within them, upon her entry, the vast corridors and ornate decorations showcased a world far removed from the simplicity Jane had always known. But beyond the grandiosity, it was the subtle warmth of the household that greeted her. There was Mrs. Fairfax, the housekeeper, her demeanour gentle and welcoming. Her voice, though measured, held a tinge of excitement as she spoke of the young pupil Jane was to teach. Then there was Adele Varens, a spirited French girl with bouncing curls and twinkling eyes. Her laughter was infectious, filling the hallways with childlike glee. Adele's French lineage was evident in her accent and her frequent lapses into her native tongue. Her past was veiled with whispers of a Parisian singer and a connection to the enigmatic Mr. Rochester. Yet Jane's focus was on her. Adele, eager to learn and hungry for affection, looked up to Jane with admiration. Together they delved into lessons ranging from English literature to the intricacies of the French language. Thornfield's library became their sanctuary. It was filled with ancient tomes and contemporary novels, each page turning an opportunity for Adele to explore new worlds. Under Jane's guidance, Adele's mind flourished, and her character began to shine even brighter. Despite her young age, Adele's tales of Paris and her mother painted vivid images, making even the distant memories of a carnival come alive. Yet, amidst the learning and storytelling, the duo formed a bond. It wasn't just that of a governess and her pupil, but rather a bond formed from mutual respect, understanding, and a shared desire for knowledge. As days turned into weeks, the silent corridors of Thornfield began echoing with Adele's gleeful laughter and Jane's calming voice, marking the beginning of an unforgettable chapter in the sprawling saga of Thornfield Hall. Jane's new life was largely quiet, structured around lessons, mealtimes, and long walks on the estate. But everything began to change with the unexpected arrival of the mansion's owner, Mr. Edward Rochester. He was not as Jane had imagined from the tales of housekeeper Mrs. Fairfax. Rochester was a man of brooding appearance, with a stern face and dark eyes that seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 stories. Their initial encounters were formal, brief nods or short exchanges during mealtime. However, as the days turned into weeks, Jane and Rochester began to share deeper conversations. She would often find herself in the drawing room playing the piano or sketching while he sat across, engrossed in a book or simply gazing into the fire. During these moments, he would sometimes share tales of his travels, speaking of far-off lands, tumultuous seas, and the many people he'd met. Jane, in turn, would recount her own tales, smaller in scope, but deep in emotion, reflecting her childhood and experiences. Yet, amidst these tranquil moments, there was an underlying tension, a tension that whispered of unsaid words and emotions not yet confessed. It was clear that the two were drawn to each other, not just by circumstance, but by a genuine affection that was growing with every passing day. Nestled amidst the moors, it was a place of mystery, beauty, and occasional danger. But the real enigma was not the grandeur of the mansion. It was the strange incidents that began to unfold after Jane's arrival. In the silence of the night, eerie laughter would sometimes echo through the hallways. It was a sound unfamiliar and unsettling. None of the residents seemed to know its source, or if they did, they remained tight-lipped. This laughter wasn't joyful, but haunting, almost mournful. Then came the night of the fire. A blaze took hold in Mr. Rochester's room, threatening to engulf the entire mansion in its fiery embrace. Smoke filled the hallways, obscuring vision and making breathing difficult. But amidst the chaos, a beacon of bravery shone through. Jane, driven by an inexplicable instinct, dashed towards the danger. Finding the source of the fire, she managed to douse the flames, saving Mr. Rochester from potential harm. It wasn't just the flames that Jane had to combat. It was her growing feelings which had intensified in the face of danger. The bond between Jane and Mr. Rochester was no longer just that of an employer and an employee. The incident had brought them closer, uniting them in a way words alone. Their hands might have touched briefly. Their gazes met, but in those fleeting moments, an unspoken agreement was forged, a pact of mutual respect, trust, and perhaps the early sparks of love. But Thornfield Hall still had its mysteries. One such puzzling event was the appearance of a torn wedding veil, left abandoned, its beauty marred. Whose veil was it? What did its damage signify? All these mysteries deepened the enigma that was Thornfield. The vast corridors of Thornfield were no longer just passageways. They became silent witnesses to a budding relationship, one forged in trust and tested by the trials of life. A delicate emotion blossomed in Jane's heart. It was an emotion unfamiliar to her, a sentiment so profound and overwhelming that she found herself at a loss for words when around him Mr. Edward Rochester, the owner of Thornfield and her employer, was unlike any man Jane had ever met. His rugged features told tales of adventures and misadventures, and his deep-set eyes seemed to harbor mysteries of their own. Yet, When they spoke, Jane felt an understanding, a bond that transcended the confines of their roles. Their conversations often strayed beyond the ordinary, venturing into philosophy, love, and life. It wasn't just their shared moments of laughter or the comforting silences. It was the warmth in his gaze, the subtle touch of his hand, and the way he listened intently to her every word. They found solace in each other's company, a solace that neither had ever experienced before. In the midst of this growing affection, there were moments when Jane caught a glimpse of a hidden pain in Rochester's eyes, but she pushed away the thoughts, focusing instead on the burgeoning love she felt. Jane's feelings became undeniable. She often caught herself stealing glances at him, relishing in the stolen moments when their hands brushed against each other, or when he complimented her for the simplest of things. But she also wrestled with self-doubt. Was it possible that a man like Rochester, with his vast experiences and worldly ways, could ever see her, plain Jane Eyre, as an equal in love? Yet, love has a way of defying expectations, of surmounting the insurmountable. And so it was, in the midst of a fragrant garden, under a canopy of looming storm clouds, that Rochester voiced the feelings that Jane had dared only to dream of. In the heart of the vast Thornfield estate, surrounded by ancient trees and flowers in bloom, a scene unfolds that is both tender and intense. Jane stands, her simple dress rustling lightly against her legs, her eyes reflecting a mixture of hope, uncertainty, and anticipation. Before her is Mr. Rochester. The air between them pulses with unspoken words and deep emotions. Each glance an exchange of silent confessions. Rochester's dark eyes search Jane's, finding the soul he has come to admire and adore. As he takes a step closer, the scent of roses mingles with the fresh earth, nature itself bearing witness to this pivotal moment. It is in this serene garden, under the canopy of sprawling branches, that Rochester musters the courage to voice the feelings that have grown inside him. With a voice full of emotion, he speaks of his affection for Jane, his desire to have her by his side, not as a governess, but as an equal, as his partner. Every word is laden with emotion, revealing a vulnerability seldom seen in the stern Mr. Rochester. Jane, ever the picture of self-control, listens intently, her heart beating rapidly against her chest. Yet, amidst this touching declaration, the skies darken, a light drizzle begins. The first raindrops, falling gently on the flowers, around them, their petals drooping under the sudden weight. The looming storm clouds echo the tempest of emotions swirling within Jane. While the proposal promises love and companionship, it also brings forth a dilemma of conscience and principles. Love, so pure and profound, yet overshadowed by a foreboding sense of something amiss. In the distance, a low rumble of thunder resonates, as if nature itself echoes the uncertainty and the storm brewing in Jane's heart. But for now, in this garden, love remains the focal point. Two souls reaching out to each other, yearning for connection. The scene in the garden is a testament to the complexities of love, the joys it brings, and the shadows it casts. It was a day like no other in the life of Jane Eyre. The sky painted a myriad of colours, from the gentle blush of dawn to the gold of early sunlight. Excitement tinged the air, its weight palpable as the preparations for the much anticipated wedding went underway. Jane, in her simple yet elegant wedding dress, looked every bit the radiant bride. Her heart, filled with a mix of joy and anxiety, beat loudly, echoing the rhythm of her hopes and dreams. As the ceremony began, the quaint chapel filled with familiar faces, each waiting with bated breath for the union of Jane and Mr. Rochester. Yet, in the midst of the solemn vows, a voice rang out, breaking the sanctity of the moment. The voice declared an impediment, a secret so dark and hidden it threatened to shatter the world Jane knew. There, in the shadows, the truth lurked, locked away, shrouded in mystery and despair. She was the ghostly presence that haunted the hallways of Thornfield. Her existence, a testament to the complexities of love, trust, and the societal constraints of the time. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. Jane's world, once filled with the promise of love and a future, was now consumed by doubt and betrayal. The weight of the secret, heavy and oppressing, bore down on her. Jane, after uncovering the bitter secrets hidden within Thornfield's walls, felt a pang sharper than most. This pain wasn't merely about shattered dreams. It was a stark realization of the fragility of trust. Feeling lost and betrayed, Jane made a decision that many of us might find familiar: the urge to escape, to put distance between herself and the source of her anguish. Without a clear destination in mind, she ventured into the wilderness, fleeing the shadows of Thornfield. The vast moors of England stretched endlessly before her, with their undulating hills and wild heather. Their vastness mirrored her feelings of isolation and desolation. Walking alone, the winds whispered secrets to her, as if sharing the sorrows of 1,000 souls. The moors can be unforgiving, and so can our own minds when grappling with despair. Jane's steps, initially driven by urgency, started to falter, lacking provisions and a clear sense of direction. The weight of her emotional turmoil was compounded by physical exhaustion. There's a certain clarity that often comes with solitude. Being alone with one's thoughts can lead to introspection, but it can also amplify the inner tempest as the cold seeped into her bones. Jane's thoughts became a tempest of memories, regrets, and hopes. Each gust of wind seemed to question her decision to leave. Yet the thought of facing her past made her steps quicken. For those who have felt heartbreak, there's a known dichotomy. Jane's journey on the moors wasn't just a physical escape. It was a deep dive into her own psyche, her values, and her indomitable spirit. She was not merely fleeing from Thornfield, she was moving towards understanding, healing, and ultimately, amidst the sprawling moorland, a new chapter awaited Jane. After the heartache at Thornfield, she found herself in the embrace of the verdant English countryside, where Moor House stood as a beacon of hope. Its walls, sturdy and warm, echoed with the soft voices of the river's sisters. Diana and Mary, these women were unlike any Jane had met before. Their kindness wasn't out of pity or obligation. They saw Jane not as a downtrodden woman, but as an equal, a kindred spirit. Yet it wasn't just the sisters who marked a turning point in Jane's life. St. John, with his stern demeanor and piercing gaze, played a pivotal role in the tapestry of her narrative. While his intentions were noble, his manner was reserved, creating a contrast to the openness of his sisters. Among the soft conversations and shared evenings at Moor House, Jane would unravel another layer of her destiny. A letter, sealed with wax, held news that would forever change Jane's trajectory. It spoke of a substantial inheritance left behind for her, revealing a startling connection to the Rivers family. She wasn't merely a guest at Moor House. She was family, bound by blood and history to Diana, Mary, and even the stern St. John. This inheritance was more than just monetary value. It was a testament to Jane's resilience, a reward for her unwavering spirit and a bridge to the past she never knew she had. But with newfound wealth came decisions, choices, and paths that Jane would have to navigate with care. As days turned to nights, the narrative of Jane Eyre continued to unfold, each moment brimming with revelations, introspection, and the ever-present quest for love and independence. St. John Rivers is a man of strong convictions. His life revolves around duty, obligation, with piercing eyes and a demeanor that exudes responsibility. He stands as a stark contrast to the passionate and unpredictable Mr. Rochester. St. John believes in the path of righteousness. It's within the quiet walls of Moor House that he offers Jane a life far different from the one she's known. Not a life of passionate romance, but one of commitment to a higher calling. He asks her to join him, to become his wife, not out of love, but out of a shared commitment to missionary work abroad. Jane, he says, our Creator destined us for a purpose. Together, we can spread His word and make a difference. In His eyes, love isn't a requisite for marriage, but shared duty is. For Jane, a woman who has experienced profound isolation and longing, this proposal throws her into deep contemplation. Her heart, bruised and tender from the past, yearns for genuine love and affection. She dreams of mutual respect, shared laughter, whispered secrets, and warm embraces. Yet here stands a man offering her purpose, stability, and a partnership transcends traditional bounds. It's a crossroads moment for Jane. To accept St. John's proposal would mean a life dedicated to a noble cause, but potentially void of the passionate love she's once tasted. To decline might mean continued solitude and uncertainty, but also the hope of true romantic fulfillment. It's duty versus desire, head versus heart. Jane's internal struggle paints a vivid portrait of the human condition, a reminder of the difficult choices we face when navigating the turbulent waters of love and responsibility in a landscape marred by time and sorrow. A voice echoed. This was not any voice, but a hauntingly familiar one, a voice that had once been the cornerstone of Jane's existence, beckoning her back. Rochester's voice seemed to reach out from the vastness of the moors, a spectre of past joys and heartaches. It carried with it the weight of longing, a desperate plea that transcended the confines of reality. Some might say it was the mere whimsy of a wind or the deceptive play of the elements. But for Jane, it was a call from destiny, an unbroken thread pulling her back to where her heart truly belonged. Guided by this phantom serenade, she found her way back to Thornfield Hall, but what awaited her was far from the grand mansion, brimming with memories. The once majestic Thornfield was now a ruin, its stony walls crumbling and charred by an unseen fire. Windows that had once gleamed with warmth were now shattered, bearing testament to a tragedy. Witnessing this desolation, a chill gripped Jane's heart. The vast corridors and rooms, which had once echoed with laughter and whispers of love, now stood silent. It was as if time had conspired to erase all traces of the past, leaving behind only fragments of what once was. Yet amidst this bleak backdrop, a tale of sorrow emerged. Rochester, the man who had been the very essence of strength and passion, was now a shadow of his former self, blinded by the flames that had consumed his home. He was trapped in a world of darkness. The fire had not only taken away his sight, but had also consumed a part of his spirit. But, as they say, true love never dies, and in the face of such overwhelming despair, it was love that became the beacon of hope. For in that darkness, Jane and Rochester found each other once again. Their souls, having weathered countless storms, found solace in the promise of a new dawn. The journey of Jane Eyre was never an easy one. The moment their hands touched, time seemed to stand still. All their past hardships, the secrets, the pain, it was as if the universe conspired to test their love, throwing challenge after challenge, only to strengthen their bond in the end. Love, in its purest form, it's about finding someone you can't imagine living without. Jane and Rochester's reunion was not just the joining of two souls, but a testament to the idea that true love, no matter how many obstacles it faces, will always find its way. Their love story is a beacon of hope, illuminating the power of resilience, faith, and the enduring human spirit. It reminds us that even in the face of adversity, love can triumph and redefine our understanding of happily ever after. Envision an expansive moor stretching out in all directions, a vast canvas of purples and greens. The softness of heather brushes against your ankles, each tiny flower a testament to nature's resilience. Every step you take on the moor feels purposeful, the ground beneath giving slightly, cradling your footfalls with care. Imagine the weight of any burdens lifting with each stride, absorbed by the gentle winds that whisk them away. In the distance, the soft hue of the horizon beckons, signaling the warmth of home, the promise of love, and the sanctuary of peace. Each step draws you nearer, the glow growing warmer, kinder. The essence of the moor's air fills your lungs, its purity cleansing any lingering stresses or doubts. With every exhale, feel a sense of surrender. The world falls away, leaving only the sensation of moving forward, drawn to the soft luminescence that represents all that is good and comforting. Allow that warmth to envelop you, wrapping around like a comforting shroud. As you nestle into this embrace, let the tiredness seep in, allowing the rhythmic lull of your own heartbeat to guide you into a deep, peaceful slumber. Good night, dear Voyager. See you in the next episode.